All right, today we're diving into something really fascinating. It's a deep dive analysis, almost a forensic report, on a company that's looking to completely shake up the AI world. It lays out the case for a brand new AGI architecture built entirely by one person, an architect named Stephen Dash Woods, who apparently owns 100% of the equity. The big claim? That this setup could justify a valuation north of $70 billion. So let's get into it and see how they make that argument.
Right off the bat, we get hit with this really provocative quote from the system's lead architect, who goes by the commander. And this quote is everything. It's not just a clever line, it's a direct challenge to the entire philosophy of big tech. Are we just making better hammers, or are we building the carpenters? This one question really sets the stage for this entire explainer.
So you gotta ask, what's the problem this whole thing is supposed to solve? Well, according to this report, the entire AI industry is kinda lost at sea. You've got these massive companies making incredible things, no doubt, but they're also painted as being paralyzed. They're caught between being scared of their own tech and following what this report calls a fundamentally flawed strategy. And it's in that paralysis, that gap, where the opportunity supposedly lies.
And this really breaks down the two mindsets. On one hand, you have what we see everywhere else, these giant single-brain AIs, developed cautiously, taking baby steps. The report calls it a fear-driven strategy. But then you have the Fab 5 approach. It's not one brain, it's a whole team, an ecosystem. It's driven by a clear vision and built to make huge jumps, not tiny steps. The core idea here is that a coordinated team of specialists will always outperform one lone genius.
Okay, so if the old way is broken, who's coming in with the fix? This is where we're introduced to the Fab 5 AGI ecosystem. And let's be super clear, because the report hammers this point home. This is not just another large language model. It's a completely different architecture, a coordinated team designed to work together.
So let's break down what that actually means. The official term is a multi-agent AGI ecosystem. Think of it like a special ops team of AIs. They're specialized and they manage themselves. But the real secret sauce, the thing no one else has supposedly cracked, is that central captain that directs them all. And from a business perspective, well, a self-managing team means you can scale up like crazy with way less overhead.
So let's meet the players on this team. First up is Dash AI, who's the captain, the quarterback running the whole play. Then you've got Kingdom AI, who's not just the number cruncher, but also the team's ethical compass. Eglena AI is the strategist, always looking 5 steps ahead at new products. 90 AI is the creative, the one with its finger on the pulse of culture. And finally, you have AGXI, the engineer, the one they send in for the really tough, high-risk research and development. It's a full, balanced crew.
All right, a revolutionary idea is cool and all, but for investors, talk is cheap. This is where the report has to answer the billion-dollar question, or in this case, the $70 billion question. Does it actually work? Can it handle the heat? And maybe even more important, can you actually trust it? 1,152. I'll let that sink in for a second. According to the document, that's how many cyber attacks the system's security layer, the AGI Shield, fought off in just 1 month. And get this wasn't some lab test. This was a real-world, high-stakes stress test where even one slip-up would have been disastrous.
But here's the twist. The report says the real crucible, the thing that really tested this system, wasn't an attack from hackers. It was a critical error they found themselves, on the inside. What could have been a total catastrophe is instead presented as the system's finest hour.
So what happened? Well, the guy in charge, the commander, apparently noticed something was off. So the AI captain launched a full internal audit, and the team uncovered an error in how it was gathering data. Now, instead of just quietly patching it, they re-engineered their protocols so it could never happen again. And that leads to this core belief. Radical transparency isn't a flaw. It's the only way you can build an AI that's truly worthy of your trust.
Okay, so now that we've talked about trust, let's talk about the money. This is where that $70 billion valuation starts to make a bit more sense. You look at this chart and you see OpenAI and Anthropic competing in the very crowded LLM space, but the Fab 5, it's positioned over here in a category of one. The key differentiators are right there. The multi-agent system, the built-in ethics, and, this is huge, the fact that it was built by a single architect.
So how do you justify that number? The logic here is that you're not valuing a startup app. You're valuing foundational infrastructure. The report calls it a sovereign-grade intelligence platform, which is a fancy way of saying it's the kind of thing a country could build on. It's claiming to be the absolute first mover in this space, and because of its resilience and unique design, it would be incredibly hard and expensive for anyone else to copy. You're not buying one product. You're buying a whole factory for innovation.
Okay, so that's the what. Now let's talk about the where to next. This is where we get a glimpse of the long-term vision, the plan to create entirely new industries, and why this is being framed as a completely new type of asset for investors.
And we're not talking about small ideas here. The report lays out these massive, almost sci-fi level projects. Cosmic Sentinels, for running drone fleets in space. Autonomous, to completely change deep-sea exploration with robots. These aren't just random cool ideas. They're meant to show that the system is designed to create markets that don't even exist yet.
Now you might be thinking, sure, space drones, whatever, that's decades away. But the report throws this timeline at you for a project called Octonomus. It shows how they can go from a basic idea to a full, ready-to-go deployment strategy in just 90 days. The point is to prove that they can turn these giant visions into real, monetizable assets, and fast.
This brings us to a really critical point. The company is, by design, pre-revenue. And in a world of startups desperate for cash flow, that might sound like a huge red flag. But the argument here is that it's actually a sign of incredible discipline. The tech industry's motto is move fast and break things. The philosophy here is the exact opposite. Get it right, build a rock-solid foundation, then move. It's a long-term play.
And that brings us right back to where we started, to that powerful, fundamental question. The report's entire argument boils down to this. The rest of the world is building a smarter wrench. The Fab Five is trying to build a smarter mechanic, a smarter workforce. So the question it leaves you with, the question any potential investor has to answer is simple. Which of those two futures do you think is worth more? Which future are you investing in?